In his prime, Petr Cech was more than a goalkeeper. He was something of a superhero. He could jump, fly, stop shots from the enemies. He often had the responsibility of saving the day, something he did regularly and expertly. And like every great hero, he wore a mask. But every hero has an origin story. For Petr Cech, the quiet giant who became Chelsea's masked guardian, it didn't begin with glory or triumph. It began with a collision, one that nearly took his life and changed it forever. This is the story of the Superkeeper and the game that turned him into a masked man. Cech achieved worldwide fame during his time playing for Chelsea. Before then, he had been with Viktoria Plzeň, Chamel Bulshani and Sparta Prague, all in his home country of Czech Republic. Then he spent 2 years in France, playing for Rennes up until 2004. This entire time, Cech was a normal, regular dude who was just really good at goalkeeping. But Chelsea saw what he could become and went ahead to sign him in 2004 when he was just 22 years old. They paid £7 million for him, making him the most expensive goalkeeper in Chelsea history at the time. Despite being young and Chelsea having a more experienced goalie in Carlo Cudicini, Cech immediately became first-choice goalkeeper under Jose Mourinho, and he kept a clean sheet on his debut against Manchester United. It was the perfect start for him. Between December 2004 and March 2005, he went 1,025 minutes without conceding a single goal, which became a Premier League record at the time. He would then finish his debut season in England with the Premier League Golden Glove after keeping a record 24 clean sheets in that campaign. It was a truly crazy start, and after that season, it was obvious that Cech was going to be around for a long time. But this guy, everyone was looking to dominate the goalkeeping position, very nearly died in the line of duty the following year. On the 14th of October 2006, something really crazy happened on a Premier League pitch that threatened Cech's life. It was a Premier League game between Reading and Chelsea at the Madejski Stadium in Reading. Chelsea went into that game as defending Premier League champions, but they surely didn't expect the game to be easy, as Reading were enjoying an unbeaten home record. So we expected this to be a really interesting game, but it ended up giving us a lot more drama than we bargained for, and it started right from the very beginning. In fact, if you were just a minute late to the game, you would have missed a huge part of the drama. Literally less than 20 seconds into the game, the entire contest took a whole different turn. Petr Cech had come out to collect the ball at the edge of his box, and just as he did, he collided with Stephen Hunt, a Reading midfielder who was making his first Premier League start that day. At first, everyone thought it was nothing, but the replay showed that Hunt's knee had just slammed right into Cech's head. It was brutal. The medics quickly rushed into the pitch to attend to him. After a couple minutes of examination, we saw Cech crawl on all fours over the touchline and just collapse on the ground as he continued to receive medical attention. After about 4 minutes on the sidelines, it was decided that he couldn't go on, so the medics strapped him onto the stretcher and took him off, while Carlo Cudicini got ready to go in. Remember, all of this had happened in just the opening 5 minutes of the game, but little did we know that Cech would not be the only person to leave this particular game unconscious and on a stretcher. We'll talk about that other guy soon, but for now, the game carried on as normal with Cudicini in goal, and it was a very tight contest. There was nothing between those two sides for much of the half, until Chelsea got a free kick just moments before half-time. Frank Lampard took a shot at goal, but the ball first deflected off a Chelsea player and then off Reading's Ivar Ingimarsson and headed into the net. It wasn't a pretty goal, but Chelsea took it and went into the half-time break with it. Now, one would have thought that Cech's injury was enough drama for the game, and even for the entire season to be very honest, but the second half gave us even more. Believe it or not, Chelsea finished this game with only 9 players on the pitch. How the heck did that happen? Well, just 17 minutes into the second half, we saw John Obi Mikel, who was making his first Premier League start that day, get sent off after receiving his second yellow card for pulling a player back. The Nigerian midfielder wasn't having it, and he had to be held back by Didier Drogba and his other teammates. So, at this point, it was advantage raiding. They were a goal down, but they were now a man up. But that didn't even last. In the 83rd minute, Reading's Andre Biki got shown a second yellow card for bringing Drogba down outside the box, so he too had to walk. So, both teams were going to end the game with 10 men each, right? Wrong. With the game still 1-0 heading into the final moments of the match, Reading were really pushing for an equaliser. They got a late corner kick, and their goalkeeper came up for it. You couldn't even blame him. It was all or nothing at this point. The Chelsea box was so crowded as the corner came in, and all that led to Cudicini being knocked unconscious as he tried to come and punch the ball. It took a few seconds for the referee to see what had actually happened, and in that brief moment, Reading tried to grab their equaliser, but Drogba was at the right place, at the right time, and made a very important goal line clearance. When the referee realised what had happened with the Chelsea goalkeeper, he immediately stopped the game for Cudicini to get some medical attention. After the medics came on and checked on the Italian, it became clear that he couldn't continue playing, so he was taken off in a stretcher. Having your two goalkeepers get knocked unconscious in the same game was something we had never seen before. Chelsea were in uncharted territory here. Now, to make matters even more interesting, Chelsea had already made all their available changes at that point in the game, so they couldn't bring on another goalkeeper. What that meant was that an outfield player had to go in goal. So Captain John Terry got kitted up and took up the goalkeeping responsibilities for the remainder of the game. Crazy, right? Now, remember that Mikel had already been sent off, and with Cudicini having been taken off without replacement, it meant that Chelsea finished the game with 9 men and with a defender playing as goalkeeper. Those surely weren't the conditions Chelsea would have chosen to finish a Premier League game. Anyway, despite the odds being stacked against them, Chelsea managed to preserve their clean sheet and secure all 3 points from that game, putting an end to Reading's unbeaten home run. But while the Chelsea fans were celebrating that hard-fought victory away from home, once the whistle went, their minds were immediately turned to their goalkeeper, who had given them a real scare right at the beginning of the game. Everyone thought it was just a normal head injury, but after the game, the doctors revealed that Petr Cech actually came close to losing his life as a result of that collision. Yes, it was that scary. He suffered a depressed skull fracture and had to undergo surgery. He was in hospital for 10 days before he could go back home. For the weeks after the incident, this became the prevalent topic across the football world, talking about how goalkeepers needed greater protection than they were getting at the time. The man himself later talked about his experience in an interview. He said he could not remember much of what was happening at the time, could not even answer basic questions, and kept falling in and out of consciousness.
I woke up, everybody explained to me what happened. In 15 minutes, I couldn't keep up anymore, so I fell asleep again, woke up, couldn't remember anything.
That alone highlights how scary that injury was. Because of that injury, Cech was sidelined for 3 months, which meant that he didn't play any single game until the following year. He returned to the pitch in January 2007 in a Premier League game against Liverpool, and that was when we saw a new man for the first time. He had a headguard on, which made him look a bit like a rugby player, an accessory he would be mandated to wear whenever he stepped on the pitch for the rest of his career. This mask, when he first wore it, even created some sort of controversy. It carried the Canterbury of New Zealand's logo, and both Puma and Adidas were unhappy about it. They were the kit sponsors for Czech Republic and Chelsea respectively, so they didn't like that one of their players had the logo of a competing brand brandished on his head. Adidas stepped in and made him a special headgear, which quickly became a huge part of Petr Cech's identity. However, whenever he went to play with the national team, he would ditch the Adidas mask for an unbranded one. Now, everyone already knew that Petr Cech was a good goalkeeper, but with this special mask, he became even better. It felt like it gave him extra powers. He wore it for the first time in 2007, and that year, he helped Chelsea win the domestic double of the League Cup and the FA Cup. In the FA Cup final, he kept a clean sheet in 120 minutes against Manchester United, becoming the first goalkeeper to end a competitive game in the new Wembley Stadium with a clean sheet. The following year, he helped Chelsea reach the UEFA Champions League final for the first time in their entire history, even saving a penalty from Cristiano Ronaldo in that game against Manchester United. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough to win Chelsea the trophy, as John Terry and Nicolas Anelka both missed decisive kicks in the shootout. But 4 years later, the hero was there to complete the job he had started. He helped Chelsea get to another Champions League final, and this time, he was the fans' man of the match. In that game against Bayern Munich, right on Bayern's home ground, he saved a penalty from Arjen Robben in extra time, which could have cost Chelsea the trophy. Then in the penalty shootout, he saved an extra 2 penalties to help the Blues secure their first ever UEFA Champions League trophy, and make them the first and only London club so far to achieve that feat. That day, with his famous mask on, he secured his place as a Chelsea legend. The Superkeeper would finish his career with a host of records under his belt. Here are a few. Most clean sheets in Premier League history. Fewest games needed to reach 100 clean sheets in Premier League history. Most clean sheets in a single Premier League season. Most Premier League Golden Gloves. Only player to win the Premier League Golden Glove with 2 different clubs, Chelsea and Arsenal. So, when I call him the Superkeeper, just know that that is a title he very well earned. He even currently sits in the Premier League Hall of Fame, cementing his legacy as one of the greatest goalkeepers the league has ever seen. If you started to watch football in the mid-2000s, then you probably only ever saw Cech play with his mask on. It even became strange to see him without the accessory, but not many knew the story of how and why he began to wear it in the first place. As was the case with Peter Parker, what should have killed Petr Cech turned out to be his hero origin story. The bite from the radioactive spider turned Peter Parker into Spider-Man, while the blow to the head from Stephen Hunt turned Petr Cech into the Superkeeper. And while both of them needed a mask to perform their superhero duties, there are so many similarities there, aren't they? But well, since we're talking about former Chelsea goalkeepers, you might be interested in finding out about how another one of Chelsea's former goalkeepers turned into an animal on the pitch in one of the biggest games in world football. Only that this time, he wasn't wearing a Chelsea shirt. It's a pretty crazy story, and if you want to hear it, just click on this link.